What if I told you that the secret to growing your podcast and brand isn't just creating great content, but also showing up confidently and boldly? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about in this episode with Tamar Lyons. We are diving into how to own your voice, showcase your authority, use social proof, and of course, dealing with those comments that maybe people will make about your podcast. And just know that if someone doesn't like your podcast, it's just not for them. That does not mean that there's anything wrong with it. So if you've been holding back or second guessing yourself, it's time to step up and podcast with Unapologetic Confidence. Welcome to the Podcast Café, where we're serving up everything you need to know about podcasting, from tips, stories, and strategies for podcasters from podcasters. I'm your host, Haley Hayhurst, the founder of Espresso Podcast Production, a full-service podcast agency helping business owners, creatives, and thought leaders launch and grow their shows. Whether you're just starting out or want to take your podcast to the next level, this is the place for you. Each week, we'll dive into practical tips, actionable strategies, and of course, stories from other podcasters so that you can build up a podcast that you love and that works for your business. So grab your coffee, get comfortable, and let's get started. Welcome to the Podcast Cafe. Before we get into this episode, I want to tell you a little bit more about Tamar. And just know in this episode, there is a little bit of an audio issue, but the content is great. So just hang in there and you will definitely get all the takeaways. Tamar Lyons is an entrepreneur, social media marketing agency owner, and podcast host and digital nomad. With extensive experience in marketing and content creation field, Tamar founded a successful social media marketing agency that empowers businesses to enhance their online presence and engage effectively with their audience. Tamar is also the host of the podcast Unapologetic Confidence, where she shares insights on building confidence and clarity in social media messaging for entrepreneurs. Okay, enjoy this episode. Hey, Tamar, thank you so much for joining me in the Podcast Cafe. I am so excited to be chatting with you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, so you were a guest on my other podcast, Employee to Boss, and that's really how we connected. And just since then, we've been in each other's worlds. I love following along on your journey. You do such amazing work with such amazing clients, and your social proof that you post makes me feel so inspired to figure out how to do my social proof like you post yours. Like, you do such good posts around it.
Thank you. It's so funny you say that. I literally have been two of my clients in my calls this morning. I was talking to them about it. I was saying, like, you need to be posting more social proof and just putting it everywhere and being unapologetic about it, which I think is going to lead into like our whole conversation. But I think, yeah, like one of the things for me, and it actually started as I was collecting all of like compliments that my clients would share with me in Slack or in email or anything positive. I would keep that with me, screenshot it, save it in my favorites, and I would have this kind of like folder so I could reflect on it and be like, oh yeah, like I'm feeling bad. I had those mean voices in my head. Well, no, I have clients telling me like, look how great you are. Look how, it was just for my own. And from there, it just kind of became so fun. And I think it's helped me build so much confidence, which is what everything in Unapologetic Confidence is obviously about on the podcast side. But also, it's just helped me and it's helped clients because so many clients come to me and say, I love working with you because you're not afraid to share it. And I think that's what it's kind of become at this point is it's not just social proof and, oh, look at what we can do. It's, can you take the social proof and actually be proud and use it and showcase it for other people? And I think it's I love that you just said that. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. And so quick tip for podcasters, when people leave you reviews, screenshot those, post them on social media, or just share, like save them for yourselves, because sometimes when we're podcasting, we need that confidence boost and we're like, okay, we're not doing this just to talk to a microphone. Like, we are doing this because we're making an impact. And that's what we're talking about today. And so before we get into everything about your podcast, Unapologetic Confidence, I have a very important question for you. Since we're in the Podcast Cafe, what is your go-to coffee order?
My go-to coffee order, it's actually kind of funny. I actually don't, I drink coffee, but I'm trying to scale it back. My go-to order is a chai latte.
Those are good. Those are good for sure. Great answer.
Yeah.
All
You
right.
know, I've
So,
actually never had one until this year. This year was, I was until I was 27 years old. I did not have a chai latte.
oh my gosh. I used to get them when I was in college, and now I'm like diehard coffee fan. One day I'm probably going to burn myself out by drinking too much coffee and have to scale back. But for now, I'm like coffee, coffee, coffee.
Love it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. So we're talking all about your show today. And just to set the scene, can you describe your podcast maybe in 3 words?
In 3 words, my podcast is bold, it's unapologetic, and it is raw.
I love those. So why don't you tell us more about what your podcast is and how you got started?
Yeah, so Unapologetic Confidence is a podcast for new and aspiring entrepreneurs. And I'd say like pretty not I wouldn't say like a seasoned entrepreneur, but somebody who's, kind of starting out in the middle phases of their business, who is looking to really be able to show up authentically and share their story. And so a lot of it is marketing, obviously, I'm a marketing expert and I'm a social media marketing agency. So a lot of it relies on my insight, but it really is about how to stand here because that I think is one of the things that most people struggle with is that you can have a business, you can have all the skills, you can do all the things that you do really well, but it's really hard to understand how do I tell that story? How do I market it? How do I get myself out there? And what I've noticed through my time in my career working with business owners who are very successful, and they just need that help when it comes to applying every strategy they have to their socials and to their marketing, is that so many people are so good at what they do, but they're so afraid to show up and take up space. They're so afraid to say, I'm great at what I do and I'm going to talk about it. So they hold themselves back. But the whole point of my podcast is how do you not hold yourself? How do you continue to show up? How do you continuously show up for yourself in your marketing, in your messaging, and to create the business that you're creating to serve clients? So that's pretty much the premise of the podcast.
I love that. I love that. So what was it? I know, I've listened to your podcast before, and I know you were planning on launching it prior to when you actually did. And I think that's really common where people, and I want to hear your story when it comes to this, but I know a lot of people think I should start a podcast, but it's just not the right time in their life. So what made you realize it was now the right time in your life to launch?
So I actually recorded like 12 episodes in 2023. And I was ready to launch. I was so excited. And, I had edited everything and I invested so much time in creating them. And I was so proud of it. But there just was one thing that felt so, I was married. I was, not, things were going, good in my life. But there was my divorce. I haven't spoken. I wasn't telling you. And, I was like, how can I show up right now? I actually am not. I've been sharing this struggle that I've been going through, this pain, this grief, this big life change. How am I supposed to be this leader or inspiration to people to tell them, show up authentically, share your story when I'm literally not sharing my story? At the time in the world also, there were so many things going on. There was so much grief. There was so much like war and things. And I just didn't feel there was something inside of me because of those two big things happening. And I feel like this is not the right time. It's like the external factors. And then I went through a year of growth and grief. And I was like, you know what? I still believe in these topics. I still love the content that I've made, but Tamar of 2023 is not the Tamar of 2024. And so I actually took the topics, I re-recorded everything from a new lens that I have with this aspect of resilience. And I think resilience is a huge piece of unapologetic confidence too. Is that because of everything that I went through, it actually made the podcast so much better. And the feedback that I get from people is I resonate with this so much more because of that. And so I think there never really is a right time to start. I think as soon as you're in business and I think to be honest though, one of the other reasons what I was thinking about with the podcast was I get a lot of social media managers and online service providers reach out to me asking for consulting or for a meeting or for an hour of my time. And it's not that I feel bad charging them. I totally know my value and I know it's worth it. I just kind of like, oh, like you really need to pay me a consulting fee for me to tell you like download this app and use this AI program. And you know what I mean? Like I can just point somebody in the direction of a specific podcast episode and that's providing so much value. And I think one of my values in life is to be of service. Having a podcast is a really great way to have a database of content that you can just point people to when they want your expertise, when they want your opinion on something. Obviously, it's not specific. People have to apply it to their life and their specific circumstance, but it is a way of scaling your availability to people and giving value in a way that's not necessarily that one-on-one. So I would say as soon as people start asking you questions and seeing you as an authority figure, that's when you need to start recording.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And that's kind of why I started this podcast, because so many people were asking me questions in my messages. And while I do love helping every single podcaster, and please keep sending me messages, there's a lot of questions that I get all the time. And so I was like, I'm just going to put this into a podcast and call it a day, because this will obviously help more people. And just like you're saying, if we're in business, a lot of people might be following us, but not like actually messaging us. And they might have these questions, but they're not asking them, whether they're just embarrassed or shy, or they just don't know if they can. And so definitely when you start podcasting, and I'm sure you've seen this, I know you're new in your podcast journey, but I'm sure, through your marketing, you've seen this, like people listen to those that you never have connected with before.
Absolutely. It's so true. Like there's people that reach out to me and share how certain things that I didn't even expect to resonate with people that resonate with them. Whether I'm going on a side tangent. It's like, yeah, it's so interesting to see what resonates with people. I completely agree. I think that, people can still reach out, they can still ask those questions. It's just now they actually have the foundation of what to ask a question on.
And I'm curious if you can share how podcasters can kind of use their podcast as brand building, because I know a lot of your clients do this, and I'm sure you tell a lot of your clients, like, when you start a podcast, you get so much content that you can then post everywhere.
Absolutely. So I actually, part of why I wanted to do my podcast too was this feeling of like, I love like I love
Me too.
speaking.
Me too.
Yeah. I'm like, if I can record my Instagram stories every single day and not really care, I don't have that fear of showing up, then I should be recording a video podcast also every week. Because what that does for me is I create this one piece of long form content, and from that, I'm able to cut that up. And so I'm lucky, I obviously have a marketing agency, so I have people on my team who can support me with this. But video content, especially long form video content, is the best piece of, I'd say, like the top of the funnel in the content creation aspect. Because what you're basically doing, creating this machine, you spend 1 hour of your time. You film this 1 hour, and it doesn't have to be 1 hour. You film one every time, let's say, doing a 1 hour podcast episode. You have that one piece of content, long form, and put that into an AI or have somebody on your team go through it, choose the best clips. You can create at least 10 pieces of content from there. From those, you can have Instagram videos, you have TikToks, you have videos you can post on LinkedIn, you post it on YouTube Shorts, whatever it is. You have all these pieces of content you can use. You can then take those pieces of content, create blogs, create like graphics that you can then use as quotes, or then use as, other like articles, other pieces of content. You can always be using them. The thing is you can't do it the other way around. If I write an article, I don't get a piece of video content. If I write a Instagram caption, I don't get a video that I can then use as a reel or as a TikTok video. And that's what's so powerful and potent about using a podcast, is that you're sharing, you're speaking, you're talking, and then you get all those creative assets from it. And that's just from like the content creation machine. That's wonderful. That's also the internal side of things. That's not even touching on the fact that you're recording with guests, you're then actually getting a visibility strategy too, so to speak. So for example, right now you and I are recording a podcast. You're going to then take this episode. You can create different clips of, number one, just yourself speaking. So it doesn't have to be promoting the podcast. It's also promoting your own authority. But what you're also getting from it is you're going to get access to my audience and any other guests that you have, right? We're going to create clips from this. I can then take this on my Instagram or my TikTok, my LinkedIn. We can do collaboration posts. You'll tag me. I'll tag you. You gain visibility for yourself, and then I gain visibility for myself. So we have this really beautiful symbiotic relationship where both of us are gaining exposure to each other's audiences. So I'm a very big proponent of having a podcast, even if no one's listening to it, because at the end of the day, you're getting all this content for your own internal platforms.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. And I mean, people will listen, right? You don't need millions of people to listen, but definitely I think that the repurposing piece is, so I do this for my clients where I'll manage their podcast, create those clips, post it for them, and just turn it into a bajillion pieces of content for them. And my clients who, it is a higher ticket offer that I have, but it also gives them the results. So like whenever I sit down with them, I'm like, okay, this is my cost. How many clients do you need to cover this? And it makes it easy for them to kind of
Yeah.
understand, where do I need to show up? Is this the right thing to do? And almost always it is. And so thanks for sharing all of that. And I know you mentioned that you have a team who kind of does this for you. So what results have you seen just from your podcast? And like I mentioned, you're still in like the newer phases, but I know that you're seeing results.
Yeah, exactly. It's been so wild. So, okay, I want to talk about like business results in terms of
Hmm.
like monetary, like tactical, like what have I seen? I have two clients. So in terms of like the views, I think we're getting about like 50 downloads per week, which is pretty
Hmm.
good, honestly. Like
Yeah.
and again, like to me, this is like a done is better than perfect. Because again, I've said like the reason I have this podcast, a big piece of it is for the content machine aspect of it. It's not to be like, oh, I'm gonna have a million listeners every month.
Mhm.
And I've had two clients. My podcast has been live for 1 month, just a little bit over a month. Two clients that have worked with me in the past that we're no longer together reach out to me and say, I listened to your podcast. I saw it from your LinkedIn post or your Instagram post, and I sort of binged the entire podcast. I love what you're saying. Reminding me I need to get back into this work. Like, let's start working together. And so I've booked consulting calls. I've booked like social media management clients for the agency. It has actually resulted in like really targeting the people that I'm trying to speak to. And that has been really, really wonderful. And the thing that I also love about it, from a personal development side of things, is that it's given me a platform, an additional platform to share my story and refine my story. I think something that people say to me all the time is, Tamar, you're so eloquent. You're so great at speaking. I love hearing you, share things. You don't say like or every 2 seconds. And part of that is because I'm constantly speaking. And the more you get comfortable speaking, number one, number two, speaking about your offers and speaking about yourself, talking about what I do and how I do it and how I provide value, I'm going to just refine that. So when I'm on sales calls, I'm also going to be able to talk about the value and insights and things that I can bring to the table. It's a really great way of just building your own confidence and getting comfortable taking up space. That's really my whole message. I think in general is like, take up more space. Take that up. You are the expert. People do want to hear from you. And if people don't want to hear from you, then guess what? They're not listening to your podcast anyway. So you have nothing to
Hmm.
lose. So I just really think it is a really great way to build character, build personal development, build confidence. And I'm really seeing that. I'm also seeing, obviously like dollars come in from it too, which is just great. And it's a benefit. And from the content creation standpoint, it's great. And I love it.
I love it for you. I love it for you. Thanks for sharing all of that. One last question before we get into our rapid fire section. I would love to hear your tips for podcasters to show up unapologetically with confidence.
Ooh, okay. Well, tip number one is make sure you actually listen to podcasts. Like you should listen to other podcasts so that you know what you like about those podcasts. Second thing is to know your worth, know your craft. What is it that you are selling? What is your story? Confidence comes from consistently doing the things that you say that you're going to do. So if you don't know how to talk about the thing that you're doing, it's going to be very, very, very hard to come across as confident. But if you know exactly what you're doing, who you serve, how you serve them, and the value that you bring, you're naturally going to show up with unapologetic confidence because you're coming from that place of service. You're coming from that place of saying, what I have to offer is of incredible and immense value. And of course I want to talk about it. Of course I want to share it with the world, because if I don't share it, I'm holding them back from experiencing the transformation of working with you. The other thing is just knowing that, the people who, I think one of the things people get in their head all the time, like, I'm going to stumble, or I'm not going to sound great, or I don't know if I'm the expert. No one wants to listen to a podcast if you don't believe in yourself. It's not just a podcast. No one wants to go to a keynote speech if you don't believe in yourself. People enjoy, even psychologically, like working with people who are confident, who know, can talk about what it is that they do. And so I think a big piece of it is really making sure that when you talk about your business or your story or whatever it is that you're sharing in your podcast, just show up from a place of feeling like you're your best self. So do whatever you have to do in order to get to that place, because that really does come through. And I think the thing that makes it easier to do that is knowing nobody is listening to your podcast and judging you. If they don't like your podcast, if they don't like the way you speak, if they don't like your message, if they don't like what you have to say, they're not your target audience anyway. They're just going to stop listening. They're not going to go and be like, oh, Tamar's podcast, you heard to talk about in this episode. It was so weird. She fumbled. She made this many mistakes. Like, oh, Tamar's so weird. Maybe they're doing that. I'm not even thinking about it. But nobody's doing that because if they don't like my podcast, they're not listening to it. Why would they? Who has the time to waste to an hour episode of someone that they don't like? So you really have nothing to lose because the people who are listening because they enjoy what you have to say. They like what you have to say. They see you as an authority and potentially want to work with you and want to get some value from what it is that you're putting out there. So really don't allow the fear of others judging you to hold you back because the only people who are listening to your podcast are the people who care about what you have to say.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so good. That's so true. I mean, there's so many podcasts out there that you want to stand out by being confident, but also that last tip you shared, like if someone doesn't like what you're saying, they'll just go listen to another show and like good for them. You know, they found something that they like. It has nothing to do with you or anything like that. So thanks for sharing those tips. I think that will really help with the confidence piece of people showing up. So I appreciate that.
Of
I have
course.
a rapid fire section for you, but before that, is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think you're such a like professional podcaster that you're just so good at getting everything. So I'm following your lead.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I have 8 questions for you for our rapid fire section. These are just whatever you think of. I'm excited to hear these. So, my first question for you is, what is the first podcast that you ever listened to?
Oh my gosh. It probably was something with Gabby Bernstein. I don't
Mm,
know. I don't know like what podcast it was, but definitely like I discovered Gabby Bernstein. I think it's on Spotify. I remember like listening to her speak about like overcoming addiction and just like trusting the universe. I don't remember exactly what it was about, but yeah, definitely something Gabby Bernstein.
I love her. That's great. Okay, besides your genre of podcast, what's your favorite genre to listen to?
I I guess mine would be more in marketing. I love listening to podcasts on spirituality, which I guess is kind of a go.
Mm,
It's the point. Comes to Gabby Bernstein. I
yeah.
listen to a lot about just like, yeah, just different spiritual topics, whether it's manifestation, whether it's, yeah, just kind of like more of those like different like esoteric out there ideas. I really resonate and align with that. And so, yeah, it's cool to hear things that are different because I find that, like, especially for me, like I'm always in business and I'm always talking about business and marketing and all those things. It's nice to have something that's still personal development, but is a little bit different and outside of that.
Definitely. No, I love those podcasts too. I feel like they get me thinking in different ways. So, okay, do you have a dream podcast guest?
A dream podcast guest. Oh my gosh. Cody Sanchez, Alex Hermosi. Like, those are just the people, everyone who I follow on Instagram. Because to be honest, that's kind of the thing. I think that a lot of people that I look up to and follow on socials are people that I aspire to be like. So, yeah, definitely Cody Sanchez is someone that I love. I think she's so eloquent and great at what she
Mhm.
does. And she has so much unapologetic confidence in what she does. For those who don't know, Cody Sanchez talks about like buying boring businesses and then kind of like revamping them and, you know, having those become very successful. And Alex Hermosi, Layla Hermosi, they're just yeah, they're awesome. So I definitely would want to have all of them in a
They
perfect
are.
world.
Okay, next question. What's one podcast that you recommend everyone listen to?
I love Mel Robbins. That's another person that I'd want to have
Mm-hmm.
as a guest. Mel Robbins, I find she talks about so much. And it like just, yeah, I think like people need that. You need like that feel good kind of, things that like make you feel motivated and feel good and positive, things like that.
My next question is, what's your favorite podcast listening platform?
Spotify. It's so easy. And I feel like it's also
Yeah.
like pretty new too. Like Apple Podcasts, the reason I like Spotify is because I actually love using Spotify for music. So it's just all kind of in like one spot versus for some reason, like I don't use, not for some reason, I don't use Apple Music. So for me, listening to Apple Podcasts, like a different platform, Spotify, it's all in one nice spot and I enjoy it and love it the most.
No, I agree. And the audiobooks on there, there's so much in there. That's my favorite as
So
well.
much. Love Spotify.
Yes. Okay, my next question is, what is your biggest pet peeve when it comes to being a podcast listener? Do you have any?
I guess it's like when the podcasts don't have any actionable steps. When there's not something in it that is like, here's step 1, step 2, step 3. I think especially because most of the things that I listen to are in kind of the self-help development realm. When it's just a conversation, it's great. I like it, but I'm kind of like, oh, I wish that like they actually like gave a framework based on it. And I
Hmm.
don't think it's the part of the guest. I actually think that's a part of the podcast host. If you are going to be hosting guests on your podcast, it is really important that you're creating that space and that structure to have takeaways, whether that's in a post, podcast, wrap up, something like that, but to really have it in a succinct way, whether that's in the show notes or in the episode, but just having something where it's like, here's what we talked about, and here's, 3 ways that you can apply this to your life. So I think, when I don't have that, I kind of like, oh, why did I do this podcast? And that's what I like.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I fully agree with that. That's a great one for all podcast hosts to know. I have 2 more for you. What is the best advice you've ever received about podcasting?
Not to care about what other people think.
Yeah. Back to that confidence piece for sure. And last question I have for you, what's the most surprising thing that you've learned about yourself from podcasting?
I feel like podcasting is therapy. I feel like it's so therapeutic just to talk, because then it goes back to my message and my mission in life, which is to help people show up authentically and tell their story. It's when you take up space, what you're saying is, I own that I deserve to take up this space. I own the fact that what I have to give is of immense value. And I'm going to own this little corner of the internet. And that is so powerful. I think so many of us are silenced and told, no, you're not good enough, too much, or too this or too that. No, I'm going to take up the space and own the value that I have and bring that forward. So that's my biggest lesson that I've had through podcasting. And then to get good feedback from people afterwards, just the cherry on top. I don't think that's actually like the benefit. It's an added benefit, I guess. It's really nice to have that when it's like, I know what I'm doing is bringing value to people, and then you're getting that feedback to see that it is bringing value. But more than anything, you're taking up space and you're claiming that, and you're owning your message, and you're honing your message too. You're refining it.
Very cool. I love that. I love that. Tamar, this has been so much fun. I'm so curious, what's next for you and your podcast?
Well, the podcast is constantly growing. I think one of the really cool things is right now it's been all virtual recording, with people that I know, different, people I've networked with, whether
Mhm.
that was through LinkedIn, coaching programs, I've met at events, things like that. I'm actually really excited. There's a couple opportunities to be doing this in person. So to be sitting in an actual studio and working with people and recording in that sense. So that's going to be really exciting. I'm excited to see how that pans out and what the content will look like from that perspective. But then also, yeah, that's kind of the podcast side of things. In terms of the business, I'm really excited. We're introducing more of a mentorship structure, so people can work with us. Work directly with myself in a private mentorship structure, and also in masterminds and a group coaching program. Really, where it's not specifically coaching, it is really more about like mentorship, how you can refine your story. How can I tell my story? How can I consistently show up in a way that not only is bringing me results, but is also making me feel that I'm able to share my story authentically and wholeheartedly. And so I'm really excited about that. Obviously, people can work with us through the agency as well. Through social media marketing done for you. But if you're someone who's more like, no, I want to do it myself, or I have a team that does it already, I just need more help refining my messaging. That's where the mentorship piece will come in as well.
I love that. Awesome. Very cool. And where can people connect with you? Where's the best place for them to connect with you and find your podcast?
So my podcast, I post it all the time, pretty much on every platform. I would say like the ones that I love the most are Instagram and LinkedIn. I'm the most active there because I have them both on my phone. So if you want to connect with me, you can find my podcast anywhere that you listen to podcasts. It's called Unapologetic Confidence. And then you can find that. I listen to it on Spotify, and that's the link that I share with people. You can also find me on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me everywhere on all social medias. But if you want to connect with me and chat with me, send me a voice message, send me a message, say hi. LinkedIn is the best and Instagram is the best. Those two, I'm pretty active on.
Awesome. Tamar, this was so much fun. Thank you so much. I feel like the audience is going to get a lot from this confidence pep talk. And so I appreciate it. And I can't wait to hear what they think.
Thank you. I can't wait as well. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure connecting with you, Haley.
Thank you so much for joining me in the Podcast Cafe. I hope you're leaving with fresh ideas and inspiration to take your podcast to the next level. Remember, podcasting is a journey and you don't have to do it alone. I'm here to help you every step of the way. Let's connect. Be sure you follow me on Instagram at Espresso Podcast Production or visit espressopodcastproduction.com for more tips, resources, and behind the scenes insights. I'd love to hear about your podcasting journey. If you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling extra generous, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps more podcasters just like you find the show. Until next time, grab your coffee, keep creating, and I'll see you back here in the Podcast Café.